Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you joining us today for the day two of our summer internship talk series. We are thrilled to host speakers from the domains of quant, IT, and electronics. They will be sharing their journeys, application strategies, work experiences, and some tips to help you succeed in these roles. We will be having a dedicated question and answer session at the end. So please feel free to send in your questions through the Google form link, which has already been shared in the chat. We will be taking up as many questions as the time permits. So I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Ritvik, who will be interning in the quant division at Quad. Over to you, Ritvik.
Hello everyone. Let me just share my screen quickly. Am I audible, Garvit?
Yes.
Okay, so hello everyone. I am Ritvik and I am currently interning with Quad as a quant intern. And let's just get started. So this is just a brief summary of what I'm about to cover. So first of all about me. So this is me. I just finished third year at here at BITS Pilani, and I am from computer science. I come from Udaipur, city in Rajasthan. I am currently an expert on code forces and five-star on CodeChef. I have been uh, indulged in competitive programming since my first year. I'm also part of coding club, competitive coding vertical, and currently, as I mentioned, I'm working with Quad. So about Quad. So Quad is a Gurgaon-based HFT company. It started in 2007, and it is probably the India's first own HFT company. There are a lot of HFTs in US and all, but this is India's own company. There are like the other companies like Graviton and Quantbox started out as a subpart of Quad, then broke into their own companies with 200 plus employees. This is the office of Quad in the Two Horizon Center, and it makes a very large amount of profits and probably the highest profit making Indian HFT firm. The last year usually didn't used to go out of the top four or five IITs, I think, out of Delhi, Bombay, Kanpur, Kharagpur, etc. But to last year, it started coming to other colleges also. And last time, it was the first time it came to BITS Pilani. So Right. So first of all, the most important part here is there is no OA. At least in my time, there was no OA or online assessment for Quad, and there was direct resume shortlisting. So making a good resume is very important, even not for Quad, but for every company. So it came for two roles. First was quant role, and the second was systems role. I'll give a just brief introduction about these. So quant role basically you have to design strategies, you have to do mathematical analysis and all to see if basically some strategy will give profit or not or something like that. So this is what quants do. For systems, it's like you have to ensure that the connection between your firm and the exchange might be crypto exchange or some stock market is well and good. This seems a simple task, but it's actually very important because the latencies or the time gaps are of the order of milliseconds. So even some uh, very short part of bad code can affect that a lot and affect and cause huge losses. So for a system, so for quants, these are in the order of importance for resume building. If you do competitive programming or something like that, your CP ranks and all helps a lot. So you it would be very good if you have some good ranks or some good, you can say, competitive programming experience over any platform, not necessarily code forces, codeship or something, even in lead code or anywhere. So it's a good thing to mention. CG, yeah, I hate to say this, but the quant company, not only quad, I do a genuine amount of CG. Give a good preference if you have a good CG. Then followed by math skills and courses. Like if you are planning to go for quants, your math skills also like matters a lot. Even you don't have CP, even you don't have done a lot of projects or something, but your math skills, you have good math skill. Let's say you've cracked any Olympiad or something, so that definitely gives you an edge over everyone else. So math skills, you have done any math courses. Most of many people I know uh, have done a lot of, including myself, their math courses. It's good to mention that in your resume as well. Then followed by any internships and projects you have done, preferably in this field. So, but even in normal projects, it's not a good thing to not mention these projects in your resume applying for any company. Then exam rank. So I would keep this as the last point, like your old ranks, if you have done something KVPY or even JE ranks or something. Uh, Usually, quant company do give preference indirectly. Many even uh, normal dev-based companies also give somewhat preference to exam ranks and all. Because at this level, say after just graduating second year, they do not expect you know a lot. So they need something to judge, like what's your, you can say, what's your aptitude, and also, I'm not saying this matters a lot, but it does matter a bit. So if you don't have, it will not give you a disadvantage, but if you have, it will surely give you some advantage. And if you're planning to apply for systems internship, so systems are and everything from HFTs are all done in C++ because we all know it's a very fast language and all. So if you have any projects or any internships in which you have to use C++, you would have a massive advantage getting this internship. Then again, CG and coding skills and CS courses, of course. Competitive programming does not matter much here, but if you have done, it will obviously be helpful. So this is about resume, and because Quad Eye does resume shortlisting directly, it's very important you make a good resume. You mention everything which is important, which you believe the company might prefer. I'm sorry, so the company uh, might be favoring you because of this. Let's, for example, in systems, if you have done C++ or any related projects, it you will get preferred, of course. So making a good resume is very important. Now for assessment, so I mentioned the quad. I did not take an online assessment last time did directly, but as its popularity is rising, it's very highly likely to introduce an online assessment this time. And from what I've heard, Quad came for PS also this time. Unfortunately, didn't take anyone from Pilani campus, but a few people from Hyderabad and Goa, and they did have an OA this time. So it's very like they'll introduce this for summer internship and stuff. For like in general OA preparation, what like I would like to mention this. So uh, there are you can like practice from anything, but I would prefer if you have implementation issues, like you can think the logic, but you cannot implement it. Go to Code Forces. Code Forces is probably the best website to build the logic making and implementation. People start from lead code, and I've seen people struggle a lot because lead code is more like doing PYQs before exam. It will give you an overall idea of all the algorithms, all the things which are used, but it's not very nice to start with. So if you have implementation issues, you have some logic issues, go to code forces, go to ratings, put some filter and solve some questions accordingly. Uh, I'm sorry. So if you after that, once you are comfortable enough to at least implement, yeah, so you're comfortable enough that if you can think of the solution, you can at least implement it, then you should go to lead code. There are many sheets like this Driver 150, Neat Code 150, and all. You can go to those sheets, solve those questions, and it would be very helpful in general for all OA, given you have good implementation skills. No, none of the questions are going to be directly asked from these problem sets. So you need to have implementation skills. You need to know the algorithms and all. So after that, uh, I was selected for both quant and systems interviews, so I have an idea for both. So for quant interviews, Quad had a very different approach of interviews. These were more like rapid fire interviews rather than like first of all, these were online, so they were very rapid fire. So like three interviews of 30 minutes each, back to back, like alternating with systems interview, and like what it mainly contained were logically puzzle, probability based puzzles and normal logic. Like if you have ever went to brainstellar.com or Gurmeet puzzles or something like that. So very probability oriented puzzles and math based skills, math based puzzles. And then there were logic based questions. Like they did not ask you to code out the logic, but at least you have to at least explain the logic. Explain the logic. What? Uh, Pardon me. So there were logic-based questions based on like you have to do this and basically code forces A and B level questions or these they did not ask you to code and there were a lot of math mental ability based question and you can say fast calculation based question. You like no you don't need to know that mental math, Vedic maths and all, but at least some things, some pattern based question, pattern recognition and all. This is what I meant here. So. But main focus was on probability and quant-based puzzle. Go to Brainstellar, solve some question, you'll get an idea what I'm talking about. Then for the systems interview, again they were rapid fire, and I mentioned in the interviews were 30 minutes each and alternated. Here it was more of DSA lead code based of questions, like normal questions, generic questions, some you can say modification to generic questions, and the main point here is this the C++ based. I'm sorry. So the main type of questions here was C++ based questions. So there is many of the people have implemented C++, OOP and studied OOP in Java and all, but C++ OOP is very different. The functions, the type of function, the logics, the implementations are very different, and uh, all of the systems in quant companies are all C++ based. So you'll need to know everything from virtual functions to inheritance, how it works, yeah, and the scenes and what is left reference, your pointer, what is right, and on. So C++ OOP type questions are very common to be asked in any HFT systems interview. Then there were design and questions and implementation based, which you can like expect. Like if you have to design this, how would you approach? Which principle you will use? How will you do this? What the things you need? And all in general, the normal loop type questions, you can find a lot of them on online on different website, interview bit or something. So this was what was my actual interview experience. So first of all, the interviews are very informal type. Like it was not very serious. Some very high sophisticated guy sitting in front of you. No, so they were very informal. Most of the interviews prefer Hindi as their language, so like which was uh, not an issue for me as I'm a native Hindi speaker. So I was selected for both quant and systems interview, and the interviews were super chill. They were very supporting also. If you get stuck somewhere, don't, and if you think you're stuck, like not like just you think for 1 second and you ask the interview for it, that is obviously not a good idea. But if you're completely stuck somewhere, you have no uh, further idea how to proceed, it's good to ask the interviewer for hints or just let the interviewer know that you're stuck or at what point you are stuck. So mostly in the all interviews I gave, mostly the interviewers do give some kind of hints or some kind of direction and all. One of the most important point is be vocal while thinking. So if you're like to come up with a solution in your mind, the interviewer does not know what you're thinking. Okay, so it's a very nice practice to at least speak out loud or speak out something. So interviewer know ki, ha, at least he knows this, he is going in the right direction or not. If you're going in the wrong direction, he can probably correct you and all. So it's a very good idea. And again, yeah, be calm and be confident during interviews. Uh, Panicking does not help at all. It shuts your mind and all. So stay calm. And yeah, so Quad I did not have an HR round. So uh, that's, I'm not sure it's a plus point or minus point, but yeah, so only technical rounds were there. So there was no manager talk, no SHR round or all. So uh, well, nice. So I wanted to share this is Quant compilation. I'm sure the slides will be shared with you all, or probably something, or you can just go to this URL. This is a Quant compilation. This contains the action, the you can say experience of everyone who has been to Quant this year and last year. Uh, so this will have everything from even resources you needed to use to, you can say, uh, experiences, interview experiences of any company, IMC, TRC, Quad, TrexQuant. So this link would be very helpful. You can, I don't know, save it or take a screenshot or something, but I'm sure slides will be shared. So that, thank you everyone. That was all from my side. Feel free to contact me. This is my phone number. This is my email ID, and I think Q&A would be taken at last. So thank you everyone. If you have any questions, just drop me. I'll be happy to answer that. Thank you for your reactions. We have people raising hand. Do you want me to take their
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
hand?
No, no, I'll just mention that. I'll just mention that in a second.
Okay,
So
okay,
for
no.
everyone like uh, trying to ask the questions, we will be taking all the questions at the end of the meet. So you guys can put up your questions in the Google form link, which I have shared in the chat. Yeah. So thank you so much for that insightful session, Ritvik. Your experience and advice will definitely be valuable for everyone looking to explore roles in this domain. And also the slides will be shared with all the people. The mails will be sent after the meet. Okay, so moving on to our next speaker, we have Sundar, who will be interning at PayPal as a software engineering intern. Over to you, Sundar. No, Sundar, I don't think you're audible.
Yeah, what about now?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Okay, so, okay, let me just share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, so, yeah, apologize for the laggy connection here. It's a bit windy outside, so you're gonna have to deal with that. I hope my presentation is visible.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, guys, so let's get started. So, my name is Sundar. I'm a software engineering intern at PayPal, and today I'm gonna take on the session for the engineering role for internship. So let's get on with the presentation. Okay, so this is our agenda for today. There's going to be a brief introduction. We're going to go over how to structure our resumes, online assessments, interviews, and at the end, I'm going to share some of my personal journey, and that's going to be it. So, okay, yeah, so I've already introduced myself, but hey there, my name is Sundar. I'm a third year CSC student at Rich Pilani, and I'm currently interning as a software engineer at PayPal. Uh, if you want to know a bit about PayPal, it's one of the founders of online digital transactions, and It's like a pioneer out of which all of the other uh, digital transaction companies such as uh, Paytm, GPay, etc. have stemmed out of. So mo- to the first point, so is your resume. Now, your resume is one of the most important phases of the process. So I've compiled the four most important points according to me on what your resume depends on. So let's start with the first point. So keep your resume clear and concise. So one thing a lot of my seniors have also guided me is that when you're listing out your points in your resume, for example, you have two projects or you have one or two PORs, just try to keep it such that there are like a same number of points for every subheading, so it doesn't look messy. And also try not to use a lot of jargon because when people read through your resume, they don't want to read a bunch of nonsense, unrelated stuff. They want to get to the point. Now, the next thing. Uh, so there's this feature on Superset, which you guys are going to use to make your resumes. So in that, you will have the option to highlight keywords. Use this, it's a powerful tool, but don't use it too much and highlight every single keyword that you feel like. Highlight two or three words per sentence. That should be more than enough. And then comes numericals. So this is a really important point because a lot of companies or HR interviewers, whoever is looking at your resume, they like to see what impact your project or you had on whatever is on the resume. So, for example, I made a project that makes a billing system more efficient. What would be much better than saying I just made the billing system more efficient would be saying that I made the billing system 25% more efficient. And because of that, we have saved X amount of dollars in profit. So hearing such numbers will really connect to the person who's reading through it, and it will give you a more likely chance of getting your resume shortlisted. Now, the last point is extra activities. So these can be your PORs or any of your uh, like sports and stuff. These are not that important as people might portray, as at least for a software engineering intern. But these are handy points you can have when you talk about your resume in your interview. So suppose you have a PO in some department, you can lightly brush over your department, how it developed your communication skills and stuff in your interview. So these are handy things to have. Yeah, moving on with the next point. Okay, so now comes the place where most of the people get eliminated in this entire process. That is the online assessment. Now, at least for the engineering intern role, the online assessment is where most of your effort goes in to your preparation. Okay, so coming to the preparation part. Okay, so we have the first platform which you can practice these online assessment questions. So these are generally held 1 or 2 weeks before your interviews, and uh, so you'll have to give it on a platform uh, that will like prohibit cheating and stuff, so you don't have to worry about that. But you'll generally have DSA questions along with some MCQs, which are optional. Not all companies have MCQs, but most of them have the DSA questions. So coming to LeetCode and Geeks for Geeks, abbreviated as GFG. So these are really good platforms for learning the basic data structures and algorithms. So these are where most people start their TSA journey. And it's a really good place as it covers all the most fundamental questions. And the most of the questions that will be asked will be modifications or alterations on these questions. So common resources, as Ritvik has also mentioned, is the Strivers A to Z sheet or neatcode.io. Now, these sheets compile the most important questions, important, and these questions are such that if you are able to solve all of these questions and have them on your fingertips, then you should be able to solve any other slight modification or any other question that requires these data structure problems as a sub problem of the question. Now, coming to code forces. Now, code forces is an amazing skill to have, and it's highly recommended because it has a lot of unconventional questions and also situation-based questions. Now, what I mean by situation-based questions is that so in your online assessment, most of the companies do not just give a direct DSA question as you see on LeetCode. It is always structured in a situation based where a person has to solve XYZ problem, and for that you need to come up with what DSA, which data structure you're using, and which algorithm is the most efficient for solving said problem. So this is where code forces and lead code, they kind of intertwine with each other, where you use code forces to understand the situation and what algorithm you want to apply, and you can use lead code for actually use applying the algorithm and the data structure you need to use for it. Code forces also, you can give code forces contest, code chef also if I'm correct, which also improves your speed and accuracy as it is a time-based competition, which is similar to your online assessment. Now, there are also core concepts that I mentioned. So, core concepts include DSA, DBS, OOP, OS, computer networks for some companies, but these are important not much for the online assessment, as I've personally seen only a few companies include MCQs of these questions in their online assessments. But nonetheless, you're gonna have to prepare for them for the interview anyways. So might as well prepare for it a bit earlier and be ready if they come in the OA as well. Now we have interview bit. So interview bit is a powerful tool because it has like company-wise questions which have been coming for the previous 2 or 3 years, and you can generalize them as like a sort of PYQs which you Vietnamians are used to. There are likely chances of repetition. You should never base your entire preparation on this, but it's a really handy tool to have. Uh, yeah, and I've also listed some tips on the side here, so you can see this. So one thing, if you're in a pinch and you don't have enough time, although I guess you have 2 months at the moment, so this shouldn't apply to you. But in general, try to cover more types of problem. So if you open Striver's A to C sheet, you can see they have divided the problems into sections on a particular data structure. So rather than just going through the sheet from top to bottom and uh, like in general in the beginning of your preparation you have a lot of motivation and excitement, so you might just combust through it in 2 weeks or so, and by then you'll only be done with the basic array based questions or linked list. So rather than that, what I would suggest is to try to cover all types of data structures first and then go deeper into them. So you can do like 10 questions of arrays and then another 10 of linked list and then go to graphs and networks and so on and so forth. Now, the second point is trying to understand the algorithm. So a lot of times what happens is because we're preparing on our own and there isn't anyone to tell us exactly what to do while you're preparing. Uh, One really important thing is while you're learning an algorithm, it's better to understand the algorithm, and you can look at the solution, that's fine, but just try to understand what the solution is trying to say rather than just copy pasting the solution and just submitting it for the sake of completing questions. So this happens a lot. It's psychologically really convenient to do, but please just refrain from doing this. Take as much time as you need, but try to understand whatever you're writing, because that way you will memorize it much easier, and you might learn some new type of optimization or pattern in these types of questions. The next point is it's okay to look at solutions, and it actually is only when so you if you like open the question, you read it first, and then you're like, no, I'm not getting it. I'll just look at the solution. So that is wrong. You shouldn't do that. But if you've gone through the question, you've attempted it, you've attempted the brute force solution, and uh, you're not able to solve all the test cases. So if you spend like 20 to 25 minutes on a question, at that point I would say it's sufficient to look at the solution. and then you code it out on your own. So again, you're not just copy pasting the solution, but you go through the solution, you understand what it's trying to do, and then you implement it on your own. Now, the last point is do not use AI. And by AI, I mean like ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc. So these platforms are really, really tempting when there's that one edge case which you can't find, and you just copy your solution, paste it to ChatGPT, and it wonderfully solves your solution. So the problem with this is when you're in your online assessment, you encounter the same situation, but you won't have any of these LLMs to help you there. So that and by that time it's probably too late to even now try learning edge cases from scratch. So the best practice is while you're preparing itself, just refrain from touching any chat GPT or these LLMs at all. Okay, so moving on. Yeah, we have some additional tips here. So core concepts like OOP, DBS can be left for 1 to 2 weeks before the interviews, as the most important phase for these chapters come during the time of the interview. For preparation of these OOP and DBS, so the course content should be more than sufficient. Our cover, like our bits course covers like a lot more than what is actually necessary. But a good thing is to learn all the course content and you can also follow any topic chart of your choice. By topic chart, I mean like any GFG page or any interview bit page which have like a compiled 30 to 50 questions which are important. Now, the next point is all fundamental DSA questions must always be on your fingertips. So these can be graph algorithms or array-based questions, which are like the most convenient for an interviewer to ask. Uh, and then linked list questions. So all of these, the most basic questions. So for each topic, there is generally a base question from which all of the other questions stem from. So that question, the base question should always be on your fingertips and you should be able to solve it even if I wake you up in the middle of the night. So these are really important. Now, you should always maintain a good peer group to discuss these problems with because some people get shadowed by what like you don't know what other people are actually doing until you talk with them. So you might think that you're solving like 20 problems a week and you might think that's really good, but then you find out when you come back to college that everyone else has solved 100 problems a week. So this stuff might happen. I'm not saying that the next point is stats are just numbers, but I'm just saying that keeping a good peer group to discuss your problems and doubts is a really good practice. Now, the last point, which is one of the most important, stats are just numbers. So by stats, I mean you might have like certain X number of problems solved in lead code, or my friend is Y rated in core courses. So stuff like these are just numbers. They do not matter. Some people just like they might just copy paste the solution in lead code just for the sake of getting more number of problems solved. People do that, and you don't see other people's numbers, and you don't get discouraged and stuff like that. Go at your own pace and just make sure that whatever you are doing, you understand it through and through. Now, coming to the interview. Now, first, what we should understand is it's an interview. It's not a sorry, it's not an interview. Sorry, it's a conversation. So what you need to keep in mind is that the interviewer has done this thousands of times and they have encountered every type of possible student or interviewee. So keep it fun for them. Uh, just try to maintain a conversation. Don't make it boring for either the interviewer or yourself. It's not fun for anyone. Now, the next point is before you're interviewing for a certain company, try to learn about the company so you have more talking points with the interviewer. And then it might happen sometimes that the interviewer is really lethargic or really calm and doesn't talk much. So in these cases, it's up to you to maintain the energy of the conversation. So you should always be perked up and ready, and you should answer with all of your might and power. Now, a good handy trick is to prepare an introduction beforehand. So, the introduction is one of the most crucial phases of the interview. So as people say, your first impression is the best impression. So when the interviewer looks at you for the first time and he wants to hear what you say, so that 2 to 3 minutes where you introduce yourself gives like an overall understanding for the interviewer about you. So that 2 to 3 minutes is really important. There are tons of tutorials on YouTube on how to structure your introduction to make it brief but not boring but concise as well. So make sure you do that and keep it with you. Now, the actual interview is based on these four uh, things. So coming to TSA problems. So during the interview, you'll have to explain your thought process as you code out the solution. So this might seem pretty trivial. You can be like, I know the solution. It's pretty easy. I'll just code it out while saying what I want to do. But the time of the interview, it might be like you're facing a lot of pressure, or you might not have a lot of practice typing and speaking at the same time. So to uh, to face these situations better, it's better to try practicing a few questions while saying out the solution at the same time as coding it. So you can just look at a wall, pretend there's an interviewer over there, and just talk to them and say like, "Hey, this is my approach. I'm thinking of doing this. Code out a line." Then just say the next approach, code the next line, and so on and so forth. So that's a good way to practice DSA problems for the interview. Some interviews do not even require you to run the code. So in these cases, it's really your talking and your speaking will do a lot of heavy lifting. So this is really an important practice for times like those. Now, coming to the core concepts, you should be ready for any type of question regarding OAPS, OS, etc. So usually, really fundamental questions are asked. These are just asked just to make sure that you haven't just slacked off of these concepts and you actually know the core concepts of programming or computer science to be precise. So generally, they ask like situation-based questions. For example, in DBS and OOPS, they might ask you to, so given a certain situation, they might ask like, how do I structure a database that's tailored to this problem? And they might ask you to normalize the database, etc. So if you've paid attention in the coursework or you've done some additional preparation uh, apart from DSA, this should be a really easy part for you to clear, as most of the people ask the same similar questions, and you can find charts for these questions on GFG, interview bit, etc. Now, your projects is where you really get to shine in these interviews. Now, remember, same way it's not a project, it's a story. So when you're explaining your project, you don't want to just say, okay, this is what my project does, and that's it, this is what I did in my project. That'll be really boring, and you want to make it seem like you know everything regarding your project. Like you know your project in and out. You should be able to explain where the project started from, what happens in during the project, any problems you face, what your problem actually accomplishes, and we'll get more to how to structure these answers in a bit. But just remember that your project is where the like because most of the people like when they go into their interning role or the company, they're going to be working on projects. They're not going to be solving DSA problems over there. So the interviewer will be really keen on your performance and your way of like explaining while you're explaining your projects. And it should seem to him or her that you are really acquainted with your project and you know your project in and out. And uh, yeah, that is a really good practice. And then coming to HR questions. So HR questions aren't that difficult. Uh, they are sometimes hyped up to be like a really important phase of your interview. But according to me, it's just an end check for the company to make sure to take you in or not. So don't be scared about this round. It's generally really lighthearted, and you can just speak from your heart most of the time. Just don't make it seem rehearsed. Like there are a lot of HR questions available online. You can search them up, and I would say just get the gist of the solution that they're saying. Do not do not just by-hearted line to line, and then when the HR interviewer asks you, you just, regurgitate what you read online. Don't do that. Try to add a touch of personal essence to your answers so that uh, because these HR interviewers have been taking interviews for the last 5, 10 years, they've taken hundreds and thousands of interviews. So it might, like, if you repeat the same answers to them, it'll be really boring. So try to come up with your own answers, and yeah, we'll get to how structuring your answers in a bit. Okay. So now comes the star method. So this is what most people follow while structuring a reply. Okay, so the STAR method comes from STAR. So it's situation, task, action, and result. So you first start by explaining the situation, what arise, and then you explain what task the situation has made you to do. So because of XYZ situation, now I have this task in my hand that I need to accomplish. Now, to do this task, what actions have I taken? Which is the next part. What action have I taken to accomplish this task? And then comes the result. So, what is the result of my actions? And did it make the situation better or worse? Or how better is the situation after I perform the action to rectify the task or whatever? So, this method, don't make it seem obvious that you're following these 4 steps because, as I've said, the interviewer has gone through hundreds of interviews. They do not want to go through the same conventional interview again and again. So these are just broad points to go over, but don't make it so obvious that you're dividing your answer into 4 parts and stuff like that. So this is a good way to structure your answers. Now, so there's a checklist before giving any interview. So never be short with the interviewer and try to articulate each and every point clearly. So what I mean by being short with the interviewer is, so a lot of times the interviewer might not be as enthusiastic as you in the conversation. So as I mentioned earlier, it's that so a lot of people lose confidence there itself and think that the interviewer is not interested in them. It's never like that. They always want to hire you. That's why they're there. So you being the interviewee, never be short with the interviewer and just stop your answers in the middle of a sentence or just say a sentence and never let there be any silence between the two of you. Just make sure that there's always a conversation that's flowing throughout your interview. Now, as I say this, I should also mention that there's a fine line between explaining and babbling. So now, if you start talking too much, where like you just keep saying stuff and throwing keywords after keywords, while especially while explaining your projects or a POR or something like that. So just there's a fine line. Just know when to stop and know when it's too less. So by you can give mock interviews or you can see YouTube videos of other people's interviews to understand where this line is and how to tread it better. Now, another thing is do not be shy to practice interviews with friends because for a lot of us, I mean, for most of us, this is the first time you'll be giving an interview. So uh, you don't want to go to a prestigious company giving an interview and then feel really bad or your mind might block out and you never want that to happen. So try to practice these interviews with your friends beforehand and that will make you feel a bit more comfortable before in during the actual interview. Now, another point is questions in the end. So most of your interviews will end with the interviewer asking you if you have any questions regarding the company or the position. So this time is really crucial for you as you can show your interest towards the company and the position. So you can tailor some questions beforehand and you can just ask them in the end of the interview and you can show your interest accordingly to the question and the response. Now the last point is always maintain a smile because yeah, that will put the interviewer in a good mood, it will keep you in a good mood, and when if people are in a good mood, good things happen. So let's go to the next one. Yeah, so coming to my personal experience, so I've had an OA and we've had like 5 MCQ based questions in the OA. and one DSA question. It was a string manipulation question. I would say it's in between medium and hard, but I wasn't required to solve all the test cases. I believe it was 13 out of 15, and that was enough to get me shortlisted for the next round. Now, coming to the technical interview, I've had four DSA questions, and most of them were like slight modifications on basic lead code questions. I would say the first two were like that, and I was required to code out the solution. And if you've practiced well, this shouldn't be that difficult for you. And the last two questions were a bit more difficult, but I wasn't required to code out the solution. I was just required to give a brute force approach, which I did pretty easily, and I've cleared that round. The manager round, so manager slash HR, whatever you want to call it. So that was the last round, and that's where I feel like I've shined the most in this entire process, as I've got to explain about my projects, and my projects mostly were situated around React and Python. So the interviewer was also pretty acquainted with both of these stacks, and he asked me like pretty in-depth questions on these stacks. And as I've coded out my projects personally, I was able to answer these out pretty well. And yeah, that's part of the interview went really smoothly. One more thing I'd like to say is that just make sure that whatever you put in your resume, you've actually done it. A lot of people put random projects or projects of their friends in the resume. This is never a good practice because you never truly know the intent of someone else's code. And when you're required to show it, it might blow your cover in the interview, and that you never want that to happen. So, yeah, this has been my personal experience throughout my interview process. And yeah, thank you. This has been me. And here's my phone number and my email if you want to contact me. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, over to you, Gaurav.
Yeah, uh, thank you for that engaging session, Sundar. I'm sure your journey will inspire many in the audience to take this path. Again, I'd like to mention that we will be taking up all the questions in the end, so you can put that up in the Google Form link, which has been shared in the chat. So, moving on to our next speaker, we have Vidya Renu, who will be interning at Qualcomm in the electronics division. Over to you, Vidya Renu.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll just share my screen. Right. So, hello everyone. I'm Vidya Renu. I'm an incoming intern at Qualcomm this summer. And yeah, I'm just going to share some of my experiences about the entire process and journey, and hopefully it should help you out too. So I'll just quickly run you through how I've sort of structured the talk for today. So initially, I'll talk about the brief overview of like how the entire process works, which all companies come in or came in this year for ET, what are your different types of roles, and what are the different processes are. So like your OA interview, etc. After that, we'll look into the OA preparation. So, what are some topics to be covered? How can you approach them? Lastly, some interview prep and just some general tips to help you out. So, some of the companies that we had this time for ET on campus were NVIDIA, Qualcomm, TI, and Lenovo came in later on. So, during the week or period of like 2, 3 weeks, these three were the main companies that were there at that time. NVIDIA and Qualcomm have mostly digital based roles. So now for ET, you have two major different types of roles, which are your analog and digital. Since my role is mostly in the digital domain side, so I'm going to be leaning thoda sa towards that side today. But TI also comes for analog and digital, and I think another role, which I believe is a field engineer role, and Lenovo, which is something that came later on. So a little bit about Qualcomm. It's one of the global leaders in communication technologies, wireless technologies. They're the ones who develop CDMA, which makes the foundation for 3G, 4G. I'm sure all of you would have heard of chipsets like Snapdragon and all. And right now they have a lot of like AI and machine learning stuff coming up as well in their products. So just a couple of things I just thought I'll put it there. Right. So an overview of the entire SI process. So for ET, companies, how the entire thing works is that broadly you'd have 3 rounds. The first one is resume shortlisting. Um, so this is not a very strict round. A lot of the times it's merely CG cutoff based round. However, I still put this here because I want to talk about it since there's a slight difference in terms of technical resumes for tech based roles in this domain and say non-technical resumes. So I'll come to that later on. Now you have your online assessment. So most of these companies, again, you have broadly two sections, which is your technical section and your aptitude-based section. For Qualcomm, there were three sections. All right. So there was a technical section, a programming section, and lastly, an aptitude section. You had roughly, I think, 20 questions each, maybe 60 to 90 minutes for the entire thing. Based off of this, you had your interviews, which was the third round. And so for my interview, I had only one, which was a completely technical based interview. Interestingly enough, I did not get even a single HR based question. So not even like, tell me about yourself. It was just straight deep dive into technical questions. So like, hello, how are you? Tell me, how do you make a NAND gate out of a mux and then a NOR gate out of a mux? And then that sort of, increased in difficulty. So then we talked about counters, and I think frequency divider circuits, F by 3, F by 5. Was also given a 7-bit or 8-bit sequence, and I had to make a sequence detector FSM. And all of this, the interviewer had me, present my screen and make all of this on MS Paint. So take your mouse and like be prepared for that. And I was also made to write code, VHDL code for a D flip-flop. So again, that was something that VHDL, and I'll come to that later on as well when we talk about Verilog and VHDL. Personally, I had worked with VHDL before. I was a bit more familiar with that at that time. So I resorted to VHDL. Then too, it was not much on the syntax, but more of, what the approach was when you were, writing the design or the test benches. So that is something that the interview wanted to look at more. And lastly, I got a riddle or an aptitude-based question. Fortunately for me, it was slightly mathematical based. So, even if it was out of the blue and slightly difficult, I was able to, go about it in that sense. And again, the key here is to just stay calm and solve it from an approach. So fortunately, that satisfied or like the interviewer and what he was looking for. So it was fine. So that is like the broad idea of how the entire thing works. Broadly, roughly similar for the rest of the companies as well. Now, when we talk about the digital domain, so how do you prepare for your OA now? So some of the important courses are DD, digital design. It's going to be extremely, extremely important. All of your basics, everything, you need to have an extremely good grasp on all these topics. You're also going to need MUPI. Again, not that much emphasis on your assembly language, but more on the interfacing. So all of your RAMs, ROMs, all those questions. It's always a good idea to also look into, DRAMs, SRAMs, not into too much detail, but to have a major or a rough understanding of all of these. CP, again, as I said, because there's an entire section that you get away on these questions. They're mostly like, finding the output type type questions. Okay, now I also put ADV. So the reason you have this topic, which is yours, which is extremely important, not just for your SI rounds, but also later on for your placements as well. It's a favorite topic. You're asking a lot of questions on this. So this is something that's very important that you'll have to cover. You'll find a bunch of videos for this online. You can also check out our webpage by VLSI expert on this. And again, interestingly enough, for my Qualcomm OA, I also got a couple of questions on your CMOS inverter. And, it's VTC and like the operating regions. Now, this is an initial topic in, ADVD ka digital part. And again, interestingly or fortunately enough, it was something that was going on in class at the time. So those were some questions which came. So I would say it could be a good thing to go through that and get a basic idea of at least that. Compark, again, some basics would be just having a knowledge of, pipelining, how that works. Again, mostly more focuses on the memory organization part. Some important concepts, as I said, FSMs, Mealy, Moray, extremely important. You can be asked, talk about this as well. A lot of theoretical mathematical questions on this as well. And then delay calculation, logic families. So like, you had this questions in DD where you would have the expression and you'd have to get like a CMOS equivalent. So stuff like that is important. Sequential circuits. And right, so Verilog or VHDL. So both of these are your hardware description languages. Which one would be a good thing to learn for your SIs and later on? I would say currently what I was suggested by my interviewer as well was to learn Verilog, since at least at this time, that is something that's more widely used. And that is something that's more widely known, or well, at this point of time, something that you might be asked on more. And it's much relatively easier to learn compared to VHCL. So ISME, you'll need to learn like all your different implementations. You have like a gate level, data flow, behavioral, understanding like designs, test benches, and doing this for all sequential combinational circuits. That should put you in a very, very good position, not just for SIs and placements and also, but even if you, later take up Compact or something, it's going to make your job pretty easier. So how did you
Vidyarini,
learn Verilog?
uh,
Yes.
yeah, I'm sorry for
Hello.
interrupting. I think were you like changing the slides, cause the slides were not changing on the screen.
Okay, can you see this now? I think I'm having some
Yeah,
issues with
now,
net.
yeah,
It's feeling quite a bit.
yeah, now it is visible.
Now it's visible. All right. Please do let me know if like there's another issue, because I won't be able to
Okay.
tell. Yeah, thank you. Great. So I hope this is visible now. So these are some of the topics that I was talking about. Um, uh, Please let me know if there's something you'd like me to go on again as well. So, how would you go about learning Verilog? So, one of the best ways you could, and something that I did as well, is that there is this book by Samir Palnitkar. It's called Verilog HDL. It is pretty good for getting you through your basics in terms of theory, and it has some examples as well, which are pretty good and to go through so that you can get a basic understanding of how you would go about making your modules and your test benches. Again, you don't have to go through this entirely. I think the first 7 to 8 modules should be enough. After that, of course, you do need to get some good practice. There are a lot of simulation sites there. You can try EDA Playground and just give it a, you need some practice. So just give it a try for all of these things that you see. Um, right. So this is visible, right? Okay. So a couple of useful
Yeah, it's
resources that
visible.
you can use to go through all of this. Class notes and slides. So for DD, especially having good class notes is going to help you out a lot here. What I further did as well is that on YouTube, you have these channels which have pretty good playlists for DD itself. So NISO, All About Electronics, Engineering Funda in general as well. But the first two, I'd say, are like pretty good playlists that you can refer to. And you can even supplement your notes, which is something that I did, after going through all these lectures. And slides. So for CP, in fact, I looked up all the old previous slides for CP and then get some practice in. You'll find a bunch of questions online for DD, MUP based questions, even CP. So get some practice. And lastly, as we talked about, there being an aptitude section. So again, this is going to be like your basic Olympiad level questions. So like work, time, day, speed, distance, time questions, um, finding the number of triangles, squares, mathematical series. So you'll find a bunch of resources for this on YouTube as well. I remember there being a couple of videos where you can learn some tricks. That is definitely going to help you out in the Qualcomm way, especially because you will have a bunch of questions and not a lot of time. So it is going to help you out in that case here. Right. So some resume and interview tips. So one, making a good resume. So like I said, there is a slight difference here when we talk about technical and non-technical resumes. Uh, in technical resumes, you are going to need to highlight your important projects. You're going to need more emphasis on your technical skills, courses, and projects compared to, say, your extracurriculars and other things. Obviously, put all of them. It's always a good thing to mention all of that, but you should know which category here to highlight and use. Again, you don't need extremely fancy projects because I mean it is understood that you've just finished second year. There's not a lot that you've covered, and that it's quite understood key second year third, it's only the basics that you've done, and third year is when do all the important courses. But still, whatever you've done, especially if it's in or aligning in the domain that you want to go for, do mention it. And then of course use a good format. I've put a picture of like the star format. I think Sundar also talked about it earlier on. So when you format your resume, just keep a couple of these things in mind. It is definitely going to make a good impact. Uh, Second, right, practice interview. So again, interview is something that's going to be based on a bunch of different things here. It could be a purely technical interview. You could have two, like a technical and HR as well. But regardless, prepare your basic HR questions. So stuff like right, so stuff like tell me about yourself, or like why Qualcomm, or why this role, or why you, strengths, weaknesses, basic questions like that. Have that prepared. And you can also take a couple of mock interviews with like your seniors and peers. That'll definitely help you increase confidence. And of course, lastly, the most important point is to think out loud. So here, a lot of the times, they just want to see your conceptual clarity, or rather the way you're approaching these difficult problems. A lot of times they're going to give you tricky things just to see how you're going to think about it, or how you're going to start looking at it from a different perspective. So even if you think that you do not know what is going on, or if you're kind of stuck, think out loud. It is completely fine. It's also completely fine to say, that, may I please have like 30 seconds to think about it, and then approach it. As long as it's not like you've gone completely blank and you are communicating with the interviewer what exactly you're thinking, or which direction you think you want to go, it is definitely going to help out. Because a lot of times, if they see that you're having a little bit of trouble as well, they will help you out too. And it just shows from which angle you're coming from. So definitely think out loud when you're going through solving questions. Even if it's a basic counter design question, think out loud with every step that you're doing. It's definitely going to help out here. Lastly, some general tips. So, digital or analog or both. So, I put this here because I know a lot of people are very confused about this and they have this question. I was one of those people too for quite a long time. So, what I was advised at that point by my seniors was to, choose one and to prepare thoroughly for it. Taki, because you ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि later on you have this and you're not able to juggle or prepare well for both, and so you kind of end up ruining both. So, but if you are still someone who is slightly confused about which to go for, um, I would suggest to choose one, start preparing for it thoroughly, and then to weigh in your options. In terms of opportunities, like we talked about the different companies and the roles coming in, so you are going to have a bit more opportunities for digital based roles here for the SIs with the companies which come in. However, if you're still interested in analog, and if that is something that you genuinely want to do in terms of where your interests and goals lie, definitely then do prepare well for that as well. And if you're able to like manage both, and that is much better, that's a really great thing, because then you are opening more opportunities for yourself. Secondly, of course, again, having a very good grasp of the fundamentals and basics. This is extremely important. Even small things like, what is a clock, what is a reset, what is like an asynchronous clock or reset, because these things are the things that they will pick up on and ask you in the interviews. I remember being asked about this multiple times. So make sure that you have a very, very strong grasp of all the fundamentals. Again, of course, stay calm, be confident and authentic. Um, do not lie on your resume. I think these guys also mentioned it before. You are expected to know everything, or to be well prepared about everything that you've written in the resume. Sometimes you are questioned about your projects and what you've done. So make sure that you were able to answer all of that and you were authentic there. Also, there is it's completely fine. There is completely no shame in admitting that you are not aware of a question or an answer. Trust me, it's always better to just say that you are not aware or you're not able to do it, compared to just acting like if you know something and going around in circles. It's completely fine to do that. It's also fine to make mistakes. This is just something that I'm sharing so that it can help ease your pressure as well. I made small mistakes as well in my interview, but if as long as you're calm, you're confident, and you're polite, you can definitely cover that up, and it's completely all right. Lastly, I just put this in too. Prepare like it's all on you, but know that sometimes it's just luck too. And the major reason I put this line here is because honestly, there are so many external factors which come into play here, especially when you go into your interviews. It depends on a lot of different things. Uh, what your interviewer is like, what questions you're getting, who's on the other side, what projects they have, what are the people they're looking for. So, and luck plays a major role in all of this. Like, since, as I was referring, so I had a purely technical based interview, and I had peers of friends for whom, it was a much more HR based interview, or they did not get as many technical questions as such. And at the same time, like we got an aptitude question at the end, like a riddle based question, and there are people who got a much tougher question there, a much trickier question there, or so there are things like this that happen. And so it's just very important to stay calm, be confident, and just do your best. And again, understand that sometimes it's just luck, that's all it is. And yeah, so if there's anything else, I'll be happy to take up questions. Please do feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, I think that's about it. So thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that insightful session with Dharini. Your experience and advice will definitely be valuable for everyone looking to explore roles in this domain. So we will now be moving to the questions. We have already got some questions. If any of you have any questions that are left, you can put that up in the Google form. So I'll start off with specific questions addressed to either of our speakers, and then we will move on to the general questions. Yeah, so my first question is for Ritvik. So can you suggest any particular resource for systems preparation, especially any particular kind of project related to system design?
Uh, to be honest, it's very high, less likely that you can find something similar to what we do here uh, in systems. But in general, any project in which you have to use CPP as in language, any design, I mean, any project which includes uh, CPP as a base language would work. I mean, uh,
Okay.
it's very less likely you can find a specific project in this, you can say, domain, but any project will work.
Yeah, so I guess that answers that. And my next question is to you, Ritvik, again. How necessary is it to know CPP if someone is proficient with Java, like with some knowledge of Python? Are they at a disadvantage for Quant?
Okay, so for Quant, uh, I can say, I don't think so. They look towards language as such. If you have a good coding experience, it's very easy to shift into coding. And right now, there are many AIs, many co-pilots also. No one actually, your logic should be sound. And it doesn't matter much if you know Java a lot. For Quant role, specifically. For systems, you need to know CPP. For Quant, it's better if you also know C++. Like, there is a lot of similarities. It's just syntax, more or less, once you have passed the base level. But yeah, uh, it doesn't affect a lot for control.
Okay. Uh, my next question is to you, Ritvik. How important is the CG factor for Quant?
Okay, so uh, I'd say it is fairly important. So not even a quad, but many HFTs look for good CG. So even the cutoff for quants the controls are the highest, around 9 or something, is if I remember correctly. So yeah, if you have a, as I said, if you do not have a CG, you do not have a disadvantage. But you, if you have a CG, you have a good advantage.
Okay, so I guess that answers that. Also, uh, yeah, so next question is, so what do you think made you stand out for Quad Eye? Was it the projects or the competitive coding part?
I'd say competitive coding part.
Okay. Okay, so my next questions are addressed to Sundar. Uh, how many projects do you think are apt for a SDE profile resume? As the limit of the resume is only one page, and there are some minor and CDC projects as well, apart from the significant ones.
Okay, so I'd like to take the bit by saying initially that the most important subsections in your resume are your work experience and your project. So I would say a good number of projects is around three, and you can cap it up at four. Same goes with work experience, although I don't expect many of you to have like four work experiences. But yeah, you should definitely like keep it under three or four, and try to include only the projects like which are in the most tip-top shape, or the projects which are like the most presentable to the interviewer at the time of the interview. For example, in my interview, I can remember that I've actually physically opened my project and ran my simulation to show the autonomous like car simulation or whatever. So you try to keep those kinds of projects on the top, and definitely. So another tip you can have is, so for example, if you're really well versed with DBS, so if you keep your DBS project as one of your projects in your resume, you're more likely that the interview will go forward in that direction. And same goes with ML. So if you're more acquainted with ML, so try to keep those projects in your resume, and the interview will get a gist that you're more acquainted with a certain domain, and your interview will most probably go towards that field. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that answers that. Another question is to you, Sundar, again, that with some of the online assessments happening online, that is not from the IPC, many people start indulging into jointly attempting the test and making cheating groups, maybe. So, how should like one deal with this? Because practically speaking, thinking that one should be capable enough to beat those people by doing it, or should one again like start making groups and do that stuff?
Okay. So this is a really sensitive topic to tackle, but I would say, as a like in general, you should never indulge in these practices, because it's really likely, and as technology develops, it's really likely that people who don't have much experience doing stuff like this will likely get caught, and that might result in your debarring you from the placement process, or reduction of placement points. So you should never indulge in these practices. And I'm sure whoever has gone through to the interview through these means, they will immediately get like they won't be able to perform well as per the expectation of the interviewer in the interview, and the interviewer will most probably realize that this person has come through by unfair means. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, so I guess that answers that. My next question is to Vidya Renu, that how can one structure their preparation throughout this 2 month summer season so as to kickstart their journey in electronics?
Right. So, as I mentioned earlier on, choose one domain which you'd like to start off with, analog or digital, and then start preparing for that. So, you have 2 months during your PS time. If it's an online one, you'll get a bit more time as well. Start off with going through all of your older material. So, all of your courses, course materials, notes, slides, and then relatively, if you have time to manage both, I think that's the best way to go about it. You might get some time once you're back on campus as well. This time the companies came in a little bit later, around September-ish for us. So you'll get some odd time there as well. But do utilize the time you have during your summer well. I'd be the best thing to do.
Okay, I guess that answers that. So the next question is again to you, Vidya Renu, that could you suggest some projects which might be recognizable for the students looking for roles in the electronics domain?
Right. So Projects, again, this is going to vary in terms of which domain. Um, in terms of digital, I had a project about in the domain of 5G communications, and I had implemented a couple of those signals on an FPGA module. And since that is something that went in line with the digital domain, it helped out for me in that sense. In terms of analog, I know a lot of people also do a couple of projects on cadence, couple of simulations there. So those are some things you can check out. Some embedded stuff as well, in terms of controllers and processors. So you can check out that too. In fact,
Okay, I
during this
guess.
time of like summer of those 2 months, I think that's a good time to explore some of these too. If you want to further um, have a couple more things, support your resume better, because I do have friends who picked up a couple of things like this and worked on it during the summer, and that has definitely helped them on later on during the SIs and helped them with offers. So those are some things you can check out.
Okay. So another question again, that what is the CG cutoff, the general CG cutoff for resume shortlisting in the electronics roles?
Um, right. So I'd say roughly, in terms of most of the companies, or if you want a safe zone, it is going to be something around 8.5 plus. That is going to be a safe zone, in terms of your shortlisting. However, I do not see how that should, make you do not feel like that is limiting your opportunities. Because if you are someone who say is not within that range, you can still, put in or have really good projects on your resume. That should definitely help you out. Because at the end of the day, if you have good projects, so like you can like show them that you have the required necessary skills. There have been times where that has worked as well. So
Yeah, I guess that answers that. The next question is to Ritvik again, that as you mentioned that sometimes the CG factor is like a very important point in quant. So is there a way to compensate that with maybe some projects or something else?
Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I highly doubt because see, the issue is the quant thing. What we actually do here, it's very less likely that you could do projects in that domain. So if for people who are thinking the trading, the if you do some trading and all that does not count as quant. This is completely different. This is a complete domain. There's a lot of mathematical analysis and all. So even if you do a lot of projects, internship, if you manage to grab for people who are dualites and all, you have one summer fee. If you manage to grab an internship in another quant or something, that would be a good thing. But in general, I would not say that uh, projects or doing projects and all will matter a lot
Okay.
because it's like a new domain. Uh, you can at college level, at base level, you cannot do projects of at which would help you getting an internship in this.
Yeah, so I guess that answers that. My next question is to Vidya Renu, that which of these factors do you think will be the most important in order to crack these electronics roles? Is it core knowledge, the Verilog HDL, or the projects?
um, right. So coming to Verilog HDL part, you're not going to have a majority of it, in terms of it's not going to be like a major aspect to setting your part. You might have a couple of questions in your way. You might be asked about it in your interview. You might be asked, write the code for one of them, but that should be about it. It won't be a major contributor in this sense. Your resume and your projects, yes, but again, more so for Qualcomm, at least this year, it was majorly your core knowledge. So your technical skills, your basics. Because for my interview, I was not asked anything about my resume. It was nothing at all, just your OA marks, and then straight up questions about DD and like NUPI and everything we discussed. So if you have a good grasp on your basics, that's going to be extremely important. So I'd say that is something that would be your first priority. in terms of weightage that it involves. Followed by that, your resume, yes, again, like as like since you finished your second year, again, you're not expected to have a lot of fancy projects there, but it is definitely going to show that okay, you've worked in this area and you have some experience with the skills in terms of that. So I think that should answer your question.
Yeah, it does. So my last question, after that we'll be ending this meet. So my last question is to Sundar, that how can a first yearite or maybe a starting second yearite find relevant projects for the software development roles?
Okay, so first, one way to get projects is via like just searching for internships on LinkedIn or Internshala or any other places. Other really good places might be joining clubs or departments in the campus. Technical clubs or departments would be more preferable, where you can get assigned projects to, which will actually create an impact and have a dedicated user base. So having a good user base on your projects is a really good factor to show and to tell the interviewer in your interview. Uh, so that's a good way to get the projects. Other way to get work experience would be to voluntarily applying for unpaid roles is quite an extreme situation, but if need be it, you might have to do some unpaid internships prior in your first and second year. But all of these are irrelevant because as most of this process depends on your DSA skills. So I would say focus more on DSA and do projects on the side, and you can start doing projects around 2-1 or maybe even 2-2. So yeah, that should answer that question.
Yeah, so I guess that answers the question. So that brings us to the end of the day two of our summer internship talk series. A big thank you to all of the three speakers for taking out time in order to share their experiences, and to all of you for being such an attentive audience. So have a great evening. We shall be closing the session now. Thank you.
Right. Just wanted to say thank you guys for this opportunity. Thank you, Kushi, Jairam, Garvit, Zach. Thanks for the session. It was very great.